So this is my November wrap up. I have only read 4 books this month and I'm quite disappointed. But at the same time, I think it's not too bad. I've always loved to read, and the last few years I finally started to read again, because for a while there I just wasn't reading at all. It was terrible. I finally got back into reading about a year or two ago, and I still wasn't reading a lot. I'd pick up a book and I'd maybe read it in like a month or two. So I suppose now if I read about like 4 books in 1 month, kind of like a week to a book, so it's not too bad, I suppose. I set myself a goal this year to read 20 books and I've read 19 so far, so I'm hoping that I'm gonna make it, but I probably will. I have playtime. My last book that I have to read, or that if I finish it, obviously I'll read more if I pass my target, but the book I'm currently reading is Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine by Gail Honeyman. And I just started this the other day and I'm about 100 or so pages in, so hopefully I'll finish it before the end of the month, and then I'll have read my... Hopefully I'll finish it by the end of the month, so then I'll have read my 20 books. Probably will. In November I only read 4 books and I'm trying to find them now. I rearranged my bookcase and I should have got them out. The first book that I read was The Keeper of Lost Things. I'd started it just about the end of October, but I read most of it in November and I finished it in November. This wasn't my favourite book in the whole world. It was okay. It was okay. I did a book review on it. It was alright. It was quite an easy read. I didn't like the main character though. She was a bit unlikable in my opinion, but Keeper of Lost Things by Ruth Hogan. So I read this book first. I think I read it in about a week or 2. I'm not entirely sure. I think it took me a couple of weeks to read it, but I can't remember. But yeah, it wasn't so bad. I'm like consulting my diary. I always make notes of when I start books and when I finish them. Ooh. So after The Keeper of Lost Things, I read Her Name is Rose, which is by Claire Allen, and it was quite a good book. I did a review on this as well. I actually really enjoyed it. It was quite gripping at times. Just a couple of times maybe it kind of irritated me a wee bit or made me feel a bit uneasy, but apart from that, it was a pretty good book. I think I gave it 4 out of 5. Maybe 3 out of 5, can't remember. But yeah, I had nothing really against it. It was quite a interesting book. Quite a nice little... I wouldn't really call it a mystery, because it's quite predictable, but it was definitely... yeah, it was a good read. 13. Where's that bad boy? I have too many trinkets on these shelves. Next came 13 by Steve Kavanagh, and I loved it. I loved this book. I did a book review on it as well. It was so interesting. It's not so much a mystery as it is more of a thriller, because you sort of know what's happened, who's committed the murders, but at the same time you don't know how it's all going to play out, and there's definitely a few twists along the way, and I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the author's writing style. I loved the main character. I want to read more by him. In my review I glossed on the fact that this is the 4th book in a series, and I didn't know that it's a part of a series, so I definitely want to read the other ones, because it was so good. It was so good. I'm just consulting my notes. My notes. All of the books I finished The Keeper of Lost Things quite early on in November, and then Her Name is Rose I finished in a week, and 13 I finished in a week. But my next book, it actually took me a week and 2 days, which wasn't so bad. But the last book that I also read this month was The Dollhouse. I've done a review on it. I still have mixed feelings. was okay. It just wasn't quite what I was expecting, I guess. I don't know. It was different than I thought it was gonna be, and I took a dislike to the main character quite early on, so that definitely ruined it for me a wee bit. There's nothing worse when you're reading a book and you take a dislike to the main character. Sometimes you love to hate them, but I don't know, there was just something about it that I didn't really like. So that was the last book that I read. 4 books, all of pretty standard sizes. The Keeper of Lost Things was the shortest of them, but you know, it was a lot of words, but they weren't too bad. I definitely could have read them in a much quicker time frame. 13, I know that I read. It took me a while to kind of, I'm not saying it took me a while to get into it, but I was only ever reading it like a couple of chapters at a time, and then when I did finally get round, or when I think I got about halfway through it and it was all kind of really intense, the trial was taking place, and it was so exciting, and I stayed up late. I think I stayed up to like 2 a.m, which is late for me. So I ended up reading the other half of the book in like that night. I stayed up to read it all. I read it like throughout the afternoon and then into the night. The rest of them, her name was Rose. I think I got so far through it, I was maybe taking my time with it, and then I kind of, that's what I tend to do. If I start reading something, I'll maybe read a couple of chapters at a time, and then I'll just suddenly spend the whole day or most of the day reading it, and I get through it, or I get really excited by it, or I don't like it and I just want to get it over with so I can start something new. Because I'm the sort of person that I don't like to have more than one book on the go at once. I'm currently in the middle of reading Pride and Prejudice, which I haven't actually picked up for months now. I was reading it kind of bits at a time. It was taking me a while to kind of get into it, probably because of the kind of the old-fashioned writing style. It's taking me a while to get into it. I've seen the movie, so I know the kind of the basic plot, so I know that I can like leave it for a while and then go back to it, and I won't really have forgotten what's been happening. I remember I started it, got about halfway, and then completely forgot what was happening, so I thought, oh, I'll start it again, and then I've abandoned it again, so maybe I'll start it again from fresh and just try and read it all in one go, just get it finished. But apart from that, I tend to always just pick up a book and just dedicate my reading time, or any time I want to read, just to that one book until I finished it. Because I don't know, I just find it so much better. I don't get confused. I don't mix characters up, or I don't mix storylines up. It's so much easier just to read the one at a time, and then everything's fresh in your mind and you've not got other factors playing into it that maybe confuse you. So, but that's just me, that's my opinion. That's probably why I don't read as much. So yeah, 4 books. I could have done better if I maybe read more, but I'm trying. I really am. But yeah, so this was my November wrap up. I hope you've done better. I'm off to a good start, I hope, when I've only 2 days into December, and I'm a good chunk of the way through. I started this on the 30th of November, so, but I'm really enjoying it. My camera just fell over, so I'm not sure if that's even back in the right place, but oh well. I don't really have a TBR list, so to speak, for December. I mean, most of my top shelf here, from here to, I'll include Pride and Prejudice on that list, so all of these are to be read. In general, they're all books that I have not yet read. I also have 2 Game of Thrones books. One of them is not here, and I have a Dance with Dragons Part 1 and a Dance with Dragons Part 2 to read, so, because the set that I've got has them split up into, I think, A Storm of Swords were split into 2 volumes, and A Dance with Dragons was split into 2 volumes. So I have A Dance with Dragons, the 2 volumes, to finish, and then I'm all caught up with Game of Thrones. I might do a review on that sometime because I have a lot of thoughts. So I'm not quite sure what I'm going to read next. I want to read A Christmas Carol. I treated myself to this book last year. It was one of the, I forget what they call them, but it was one of the classics that they did at Waterstones, and I just loved the covers. I have Wuthering Heights and Pride and Prejudice as well. I just love these covers. They're just so, they just look so authentic and kind of old fashioned, but also not, if that makes sense. But I loved these. So yeah, I'm definitely, oh look how far through. That one has not been started, that's just where the bookmark is thingy, but look how far through Pride and Prejudice I got, and I can't remember it. Oh, I'm gonna reread it, definitely, for sure. But yeah, so I have 3 of these Waterstones classics that they did, and I treated myself to this one last year. It was £15, but £15, but it was so cute, and I've never read A Christmas Carol. I started reading it on Christmas Eve last year, and I think I only got like 80 pages into it. I'm not quite sure, I think there's a bookmark in here. I only got about 40 pages into it, and I think it's only about 80 pages long, so I'm definitely gonna have to start it a little bit earlier than Christmas Eve this year. So I'm gonna start it again and read it. So that's definitely one. So I'm definitely gonna read that, but I'm gonna try and read it much closer to Christmas. Maybe start like the day before Christmas Eve, or maybe the 22nd. I haven't decided yet. But yeah, so we'll see how far through my book collection up here, and we'll see if I even get this finished. Maybe before the end of the week. That would be very good. So these are my 4 books that I read. I'm hoping to read more than 4 in December. I have 1 extra day in December, but it's also a busy time of year. So will I find the time to read the same? I don't know. Thank you so much for watching, and I shall see you later.